All right, welcome to Monster Monday, or this is actually Wednesday. This is the earliest I've ever recorded one of these, but I watched this today, so I said, fuck it, let's get it out of the way. I got some time to kill, so might as well get it recorded, and I can just, upload it and schedule it for Monday. So there you go, that works. Kong Skull Island, $7 at Walmart. Picked it up, haven't seen it since theaters. Was not a big fan of it in theaters. I really just didn't like it. And with, the Godzilla versus King Kong movie coming out, and having just rewatched the original Godzilla, which I did see one time, but I barely remember it. So when I went back to rewatch it, it was like, okay, I want to start knocking out some of these. I did review, in full spoiler discussion, the 2014 Godzilla. And I spoiler-free reviewed the Godzilla King of the Monsters one, but this one, I don't think I covered this on my channel, but regardless, I wasn't a fan. And so I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'll pick it up. $7, no big deal. I really wanted to rewatch it anyway. And I don't know what kind of a stick I had up my ass when I went and saw this, but man, did this really surprise me on my second viewing on how much I enjoyed this. Like, I love this. Like, I don't understand why I was so down on it the first time. This film looks incredible. Let's just first off say that. Like, this Blu-ray transfer here is fan-fucking-tastic. It is gorgeous. This is a fantastic looking film. In fact, this is something I would even upgrade to the 4K for if and when I get a proper 4K TV where I'll see that difference. This is definitely one of the better looking big budget films that I've watched. And the effects, the special effects, the CG and all that stuff is top notch. It's fucking fantastic. This is a fabulous looking movie. And this movie features 3 people from the MCU. We've got Brie Larson, Tom Hiddleston, and Samuel Jackson. So we got Nick Fury, we got Loki, we got Captain Marvel, and they're all the major players of the film. I mean, those are like the 3 main characters of the movie. So it was like, I've been watching a lot of MCU lately. Like, my kids have just been high on it, and I'll never say no to it. So we watched Endgame, Infinity War, Spider-Man Far From Home, Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel. Like, we've just been knocking them out right and left. So, and just seeing all 3 of them right now while I'm revisiting the MCU is kind of funny. But now I can say that every American solo Kong film, because originally it was, I like the original one from the 30s, from what I saw, and I'd have to go back and revisit it, but it's been a long time. But I remember liking it for what it was. I really liked the 70s version with Jeff Bridges. And I love the Peter Jackson version in 2005, I want to say. So when I went and saw Kong Skull Island, I was like, well, Kong's never let me down before. And I walked out and I didn't like it. And I was like, what the hell? That sucks. Blah, blah, blah. And I will say this, though. I think probably the issue I had back then was that the characters are not really that fleshed out, and the characters aren't that great. I will still say that. The 2 best characters in this movie are Samuel Jackson's character and John C. Reilly's character. And I feel like John C. Reilly's character is the only one that has like a full arch. A full arc, sorry. And he's got we see him in the beginning when he's like an 18, 20 something year old pilot. He crashes there, which is a great opening. It's fucking fantastic looking, the island. It just really showcases how fantastic the cinematography and the CG and all that stuff is in this film. So great opening with them crashing. They're still fighting. Now, I would have liked to have seen them on the island for a bit. I would have liked to have seen, this guy's death. That we find out later. I would have loved to have seen. In fact, that could have been the first half of the movie for me. Is, watching these guys, or even just maybe the first act, maybe like the first 30 minutes. I could have had those guys encountering Kong, and then this is a very intriguing story. This you got one pilot from World War II on the American side, right, and you got another pilot that's from the Japanese side, and they crash land on this island, and they're of course think they're enemies. And like John C. Reilly's character says in here, he's like, once you took those uniforms off, we were bros. I don't remember what word he uses, but definitely wasn't that. But they became friends, and they were together for a long time. And we don't really get, like, there's this moment where he like takes up his sword and he speaks in Japanese, and he like goes and honors his grave and all of this. And it's like, that would have had more impact had we maybe spent even just 10 more minutes seeing them like navigating the island a little bit, them trying to work together and not trusting one another, but then coming to this kind of alliance together, becoming friends, and then him witnessing the death of this guy. And then once we met him again later on, it would have been like, oh shit, he's still out there. He's, now he's taken up this guy's his sword, and he's kind of honoring this guy's death. I just feel like that was a missed opportunity, because it was a really cool setup that really isn't expanded upon from there outside of him taking up the sword. But that's just, it doesn't earn it as much as it could have. Good setup, bad middle execution. They had the initial, and then they had the good end, and there's just that middle area is missing. So he has a good arc. It's missing that middle arc. Although I guess when we meet him, it is his middle arc. It just feels like the middle arc isn't completely, rounded. And that's okay, because when he eventually gets home at the end of this movie, that is that's where you want to see him. And he's like, it's interesting. This is a very rare example of a movie where a secondary character's destination is the it's that big moment of the film. Like, you want to see the heroes survive, right? You want to see them ride off into the sunset with the damsel that they rescued, or whatever. And that's typically your main character. Rarely the side character comedic relief is like what's playing over the credits and is the emotional moment. Like, that should have been Tom Hiddleston or Brie Larson. They're the two main characters. But what do we really get from them? And I don't blame them. I think they're both great actors, right? So I just think that this is the writing's fault, because the director, the production designer, the art direction, the CGI, all that stuff is fucking awesome. Like, the direction in this is great, but the script is so limited in what it does with Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson that you're just like, these characters are not well rounded. And I know a lot of people hate Brie Larson, and I've talked about this on the channel a few times. Like, I've legitimately tried to find the thing that makes people hate them, makes them hate her so much, and I can't seem to locate it. The only thing I can find, which seems to be what they're upset about, I've mentioned this before, is this interview thing where she talks about how she doesn't really care what white men, like older men, think about her films because of that specific film. I think it was, I can't remember what it was. I don't think it was A Wrinkle in Time, because I don't remember her being in that, but for some reason A Wrinkle in Time is what's on my mind on that, but something like that. And I'm 100,000,000% with her. Like, there's all these guys who are like so afraid that women are trying to like emasculate them and steal their power and talk about toxic masculinity and all this shit, and women are trying to take them over and make them pussies and this and that. It's weird, because it's the irony of it is they're acting like pussies. That's why I don't understand. You're acting like a little bitch, worrying that girls are going to turn you into a little bitch. Like, if you were really a man, if you were really like so fucking, masculine, would you really care what Brie Larson was saying. It's just odd to me. It's just, I don't understand it. And I completely agree with what she's saying in that interview. Like, and I agree with it for multiple reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is because I watch stuff like this with my kids. And I see, like, when I went and saw, A Wrinkle in Time, which I thought was horrible. But like she said, it's not made for me. It was made for my daughter, who fucking loved it. Who loved it. So when we walked out of there, me being happy is nowhere near as important as her being happy, because it was made for a fucking 7-year-old little girl. That's the target audience. So, like, I don't care what someone has to say. Like, if there's a target audience that something's going for, like, for instance, horror movies. 95% of my clients hate horror movies in general. They just despise them. So would I care what their opinion was on Hereditary? Or any of the fucking movies that I love, like, with all my heart recently? Of course not. I don't give a fuck what they think. It wasn't made for them. They're not going to go see it. But whose opinion it would matter to is my own, of course, but other people who it's geared towards. And that's what I want to see. And if somebody else who's outside of the demographic likes it, cool. If they don't, who cares? But her point is valid here, that 95% of critics are like middle-aged white men. And this is a movie for little black girls. Like, what do I give a fuck what a middle-aged white guy thinks? Shouldn't there be more diversity in reviewing? 100%. So I don't understand the issue. Anyways, I didn't mean to talk about this for so long. The whole Brie Larson thing, I remember I went on a podcast with somebody, and there was like 5 guys, and they like invited me on. And someone was like, "Oh, Brie Larson, this and that." And I was like, "I'm sorry, hold on." I'm like, "Can you, I don't understand why you don't like Brie Larson." She's, "Oh, man-hating bitch, this and that." I'm like, "Man-hating? Man-hating? What?" I was like, "Can you please point me in the direction of where this is?" Because I watched the video, "Oh, she did that interview and this and that." I'm like, no, please. Show me something else. Like, and he's like, "Oh, I got shit for you." I'm like, "Send it over, please." I never got a fucking response. And then I went from there and I tried, but I kept fighting with him on it. He tried to keep changing the subject. I'm like, no, please explain it to me, because I don't understand. She's so fucking hated and I can't find a reason for it. Please. She's beautiful. She's got an amazing singing voice. You ever fucking seen this girl's like little YouTube videos or whatever the hell she does, where she plays guitar and sings? Oh my god, she's fucking talented like crazy. Like, I don't get it, man. Have you ever watched Room with her? She's phenomenal. She's a fantastic actress. Like, I don't get it. Whatever. Anyways, moving on from that, I couldn't help myself. I couldn't help myself. The Brie Larson controversy thing is so fucking stupid. It's one of the dumbest things that I've ever seen, outside of maybe the, like, Adele getting shit for getting thin. Like, "Oh, you're teaching people that it's not okay to be fat and blah, blah, blah." It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? We're going to live in a world where people are actually going to get down on people for getting healthy because it makes them feel better about their unhealthiness? What the fuck kind of world is that? The sensitive people. It's funny too, because it comes from both sides. I love how one side always tries to like be the other side. Like, "Oh, these snowflakes. You're both fucking snowflakes. You're both fucking snowflakes." You both get so upset as I'm sitting here upset. So I'm a hypocrite. Whatever. I only get upset with how upset everyone seems to get. Honestly, I couldn't give a fuck otherwise. What was that? 10 minutes? What was that? Fuck. That was like 7 minutes. But it needed to be said. I got it off my chest. Maybe I should just clip that out and make it its own fucking video. Moving on. So they, Japanese pilots really flew with swords at their sides. I guess that's true. I think that is true. That's crazy. That's hardcore, man. That's hardcore, especially since some of them were like kamikaze pilots, right? They really didn't even need those things, but maybe the kamikazes didn't take swords, and the ones who thought that they were going to land on the ground. But that's hardcore, man. Flying around in a fighter jet, freaking with a sword. Would they consider those fighter jets back then? I guess they're not jets. Fighter planes. Gunships would be boats. Whatever. The prosthetics that are put on this kid to look like John C. Riley is pretty awesome. That was pretty awesome. We got John Goodman in here as well, which is always good to see. This was thinner John Goodman, which is he still thinner like this? He's lost a fuck ton of weight. John Goodman is the best, man. I can't wait for that Monsters Incredible sequel show that's coming out. And I just got confirmation from Billy Crystal just the other day that they are indeed still making that, even though it didn't make the Disney meeting, the investors meeting thing where they announced like every show and they talked about every show they had under the works. And I was like, where the fuck's the Monster Inc. show? But he said they're recording it, so man, I love that series. So really looking forward to that. And John Goodman, when I see him, like, I immediately think of Sully. And if anyone's noticing, I'm wearing a ring now. I put the one ring on that I was sent. I've been wearing it lately. It's pretty cool. I can't work out with it, but I still like it. And then we find out that John Goodman believes in this, that monsters exist because his ship was attacked by Godzilla, from what I can gather. And this is why he started Monarch, which plays into the Godzilla stuff as well. So this is very much a Godzilla prequel to the Godzilla that we know from the 2014 version. And this is set during the end of Vietnam, and they pull out of this war. And Samuel Jackson's character is like, he feels like, what am I going to do? And he like looks at all these medals and he's just like, what good are these? Like, what was this all for? What am I even doing? And he feels like a failure. He feels like he lacks purpose. He's like the Lieutenant Dan, right? He's like, I need to die in battle. Everyone in my family has died in battle. And then his men think they're off heading home. This is sad, man, because he like gets them to go over to this island and they pretty much all die, all but 3 of them. I think only 3 of his soldiers end up surviving. But, Sam, he loves his men. This isn't a dude who's just like, haphazardly throwing his men into these dangerous situations. Like, outside of it just straight up being war, so it's always going to be a dangerous situation, but he's never trying to put them in harm's way purposely to where he thinks that they're going to die, right? He wants them to live. He genuinely seems to care. Like when he runs into his soldiers later, he doesn't like berate them for not achieving a mission or a goal or being like, what the fuck is wrong with you? No, he's like, hugs. I mean, how often do you see a character like this come up and like hug his men and be like, it's so good to see you? I thought that was a very interesting approach to a character like this, because typically it'd be like, men, fucking yelling orders at him, barking, and not this. He comes up, he's genuinely happy to see him, hugs, and I thought that was really interesting. But that's we're getting a little ahead, but whatever. So they go and they hire this tracker, and of course, when they walk into the bar, they always walk in these movies, they always walk in right when the fight starts, so they can like look at each other and be like, who is this guy? Oh shit, he's a hard ass. It's always right at that moment. So convenient, right? With these movies, it always is. It's okay. It's just, it gets so obvious sometimes. But that's what's so great about this movie. There's so many moments in this movie that are unpredictable. A bunch of deaths that I'm like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting that there. Wow, how cool. And then they go and they hire the photographer, the war photographer who has made it on the cover of, Life magazine. And she's really at the top of her game, but she wants to go out there with these guys. And we don't really, this is the problem with the movie. This is the only issue with the movie. We don't really know anything about Tom Hiddleston's character, and we don't really know anything about Brie Larson's character. I think that their acting in this is totally good. I think that they bring what they can to a very limited character role. Like, what do I really know about Brie Larson by the end of this movie? What do I really know about Tom Hiddleston's character at the end of this movie? I know that Tom Hiddleston looks like Nathan Drake from the Uncharted franchise, and it makes me go, he would have been a damn good choice. And Brie Larson, she's good. She's she's playful and she's got a beautiful smile. She does these like really cool slow-mo shots when she's like taking these photos with everyone. She's laughing and she's smiling. She's angelic, and she does play that good damsel character for Kong to come and save. So all that's good. It's just that the characters aren't explored enough, and I don't know, man. I feel like if that was stronger, that this film would be fan-fucking-tastic. Like, I really enjoyed the hell out of it. But that's the one lacking element here, for sure. And it could have been done. I mean, they took a film like this, but I don't know. Maybe they just want to focus on the action. And that's okay, too, I guess. Because there's some fantastic action in this film. Fantastic action in this film. You know, and you could compare it to, like, Peter Jackson's version, which has more action than this one. I mean, but then again, that movie's 3.5 hours long with the extended cut. But that one also has a crazy amount of character development. You know, we know everything about Adrian Brody's character, Naomi Watts' character, Jack Black's character. Like, we really understand these characters by the end of that film. And I want to rewatch that soon, so I'm going to probably do that one soon enough. But, you know, I just got to find like 3.5, 4 hours, whatever the hell the extended edition is. Which I do prefer because it just has more action, more T-Rex stuff and that swamp scene. And but yeah, so, but anyways, just for comparison, that one just has stronger character development. And this one just wants to focus. This one kind of like just cuts. It almost just feels like Jackson's version in a little bit, except for Kong never leaves the island. And that they just kind of really just streamline right past any of the character stuff, you know? But I mean, when they fly in and they're like going right into those clouds, and there's like this purple lightning that's striking all around them, and then they get out of the lightning, and it's just like beautiful weather, and it just seems to be this circle around Skull Island, which literally looks like a skull from above. And then they get in there and they're flying and they're blasting their music and they're setting off these detonation charges, which is really only to flush out King Kong. But although he's only called Kong in this, but he is referred to as the King. Never is it uttered King Kong in that order. Not that I remember. But yeah, they start dropping bombs. And then when Kong comes out, that whole sequence of him fighting those helicopters is thrilling and fantastic. And there's a really cool shot before of like a guy, you know, where they're like blowing up this beautiful uncharted land, this like untapped resource of just beauty and nature, and here comes man to fuck it all up as usual, and they're bombing, and you get this great shot of this guy who has these like, you know, the cop glasses on, and they're like these mirror reflected ones, and it's just, you see the explosions in his glasses, and he's just smiling and laughing as he's like blowing up this beautiful uncharted area. And it's just, yeah, that's just, I don't know, it's a great shot of just man coming and fucking up beauty in the world. Even though there's treacherous, awful things on that planet, Kong, there seems to be a balance, and the humans come and fuck that balance up. You know, there's a little bit of a social commentary there about how man disrupts the balance of nature. Before them, Kong seems to have everything under control. You know, he doesn't really bother the people. They don't really bother him. He keeps the skull crawlers at bay. And then man comes in and they disrupt everything. And here come them and you know, fucking everything up. Which is, yeah, as I said, pretty typical of man. And so I like how Sam Jackson's character is so calm when he's flying through that storm. And then he's even calm when Kong is like throwing shit around and breaking all of them. But that whole sequence, dude, is fantastic. I like how he tries to like grab at one and it cuts his arm, the propeller. So I like that it actually, there's some consequences to him going after these things. He's just not knocking them around like they're toys. He actually gets injured from doing it. So that's cool. And all of that stuff with him grabbing all these different helicopters and throwing a tree through to start and grabbing them and smashing them into each other and them going down and crashing and like the inside shots and the guy like trying to hold on inside the helicopters it's spinning out of control and then it hit. It's very visceral. It's very like action packed and scary and really well done. I loved that. That was when I was really into it. I was like, wow, this is really well filmed. This is really, really like well thought out action set pieces here. And then as the film continues, I mean, once you hit that place, this movie does not really let up much. It is pretty much an action-packed romp from there. There's moments to breathe and have little bits of character moments, comedic relief, whatever. But for the most part, you're running into action sequences within 5 minutes every time. So this film is exactly what it should be, right? Except for just maybe give it a couple more minutes for a little more character development, whatever. Anyway, and then like, oh, that shot of Kong against the sun backdrop, and he's just standing up in front of him, and the helicopters are coming at him. There's a lot of fantastic looking sequences in this that could straight up be, framed. There's a lot of like legitimate artwork in this movie. So I'll give this guy a lot of credit for his artistic, shots in this film. And I just looked up him, and he hasn't really done anything else, but he's currently working on the Metal Gear Solid movie with Oscar Isaac. Fuck yeah, dude. They got me way more excited for that movie, and I was pretty excited because I grew up playing Metal Gear Solid and would love to see a movie on it. And Oscar Isaac's awesome, and to see this guy's taking it on, we'll have some great action sequences. That I can pretty much guarantee after seeing this. So there you go. Then he throws this one dude, and he comes out, and he fucking is flying around. And he hits the helicopter, and he like goes up into the propeller, and blood. I'll tell you this, man. I'll tell you this. This is definitely one of the hardest PG-13 movies I've ever watched. Like, I'm shocked that they got away with some of the things that they got away with. And we'll get to one scene in particular that I cannot believe they got away with in a PG-13 movie. Like, I'm still kind of shocked by it. But fuck, it was rad. So then, yeah, they take out everybody. And then there's this showdown look with Sam Jackson and King Kong. And it's like flames are coming around, and Jackson's looking right at him, and you got Kong looking at him. He's just his eyes, and Jackson's like right there in the foreground. It's a cool shot. It's a really cool shot. And then yeah, I guess we get right to it. Then we get the bamboo kill. This is fucking wicked, man. So that one guy's just walking, and then boom, he's hit, and he has a bamboo pole shoved right through his fucking mouth, all the way through his body into the ground. Yes, straight up Cannibal Holocaust homage inside this film. And then they look up, and it's a spider-like creature that has bamboo-looking arms and legs, and it's just shoving them through people. This guy gets a full Cannibal Holocaust, and it's through him, and it's nightmarish, and then he rips it right out of the guy, and the guy crumbles. It's brutal. I cannot believe they got away with it. But I'm sure fucking glad to have seen it, no matter what rating it had on it. But I was watching this with my kids, and they were like, whoa. And I was like, wow. That was hardcore. That was hardcore for a PG-13 movie. I cannot believe I don't remember that, because that's wild, man. That's super wild. But fantastic. And that whole fight with this, with that freaking spider, and they're cutting his legs off and they're coming at him, felt like something out of freaking Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit or something. It was super cool. It was scary and cool, and guys were getting freaking mauled. That was fantastic. And then the indigenous population, the way they look in this, like, I really like the Jackson version. They look straight up out of a horror movie, and in this one they look a little bit more I don't know what these guys look like, but I like that they have like the symbols on their face, and they're in like black and yellow. Like, aesthetically, they look really cool. So dug the look of them for sure. We get the line that Kong is still growing. Of course, this is supposed to play into the King Kong versus Godzilla because Godzilla is much bigger than him. But when we saw that trailer, they look about the same size. So whatever. Kong's size seems to vary throughout this film, to be honest. Like his handprint seems to be bigger than him at one point when he's up on the wall. There's like a handprint up there, and I'm like, isn't that like his size? And now it's just hand. I don't fucking know. John C. Reilly's really funny in this. There's some really fun lines, you know, when he's talking to the guys and he's like laughing that they're going to die. And he's like, you shouldn't have come here. Just doing all that stuff. He's great, man. I love him. I've loved him forever. I've loved him all the way back, you know, in the Hard 8 days. I'm a big fan of Paul Thomas Anderson's early work from Boogie Nights, Magnolia, Punch Drunk Love, There Will Be Blood, all that stuff. I love all that shit. And Hard 8 is his first film, and John C. Reilly is the star along with Philip Baker Hall and Gwyneth Paltrow and Sam Jackson as well. Well, I didn't even make that connection. Yeah, Sam Jackson and him worked all the way back on Hard 8 together, and here they are in this movie. So that's kind of cool. I'm sure they've been in plenty of other films together as well, but, you know, whatever. Great movie. If you haven't seen it, big recommendation. But yeah, I've always loved John C. Reilly. He's more went for like the goofy comedic guy now, ever since like Step Brothers' success and Walk Hard and all that stuff, which he's funny. I mean, Walk Hard's fantastic, and Step Brothers is fine. I'm not the biggest Step Brothers fan, although maybe I'll rewatch it. I'm just not a comedy fan, typically. But he is a very funny comedic actor, but he's also a great dramatic actor. He's done a lot of great dramatic work, and he just doesn't get enough, you know, attention in that. But, I love him in Boogie Nights. I love him in everything. So, whatever. He's good as the cop in Magnolia. And all right, moving on. And he's, I like how he's like, you know, I've only been here 28 years. Fuck do I know? And he actually gets the fuck of the movie because PG-13. He gets one fuck. Which must be on the back of this. Oh yeah. He talks about the ants up in a tree, and he's like, it's a fucking ant, you know. And I was like, I don't know if that was the best use of your fuck. Usually they give it to Samuel Jackson because he's the best fuck in the business, right? That sounded different than I meant it. And then a dude is taken away, and he's ripped apart in the sky by these like birds. Woo. Brutal death for another, you know, yet again, PG-13 movie. Torn apart in the sky. Pretty good. Pretty good stuff. And then there's 2 unexpected deaths in a row, which is John Goodman's death, which just kind of comes out of nowhere, and you're like, oh, wow, that's yet another kind of unexplored character, but I feel like he did everything he was supposed to do. It's just you could have done... I like the subversion of expectations there, though. Like, that's the character you think is going to fucking be in the movie forever, and he's not. And he's going to be the guy who's like fucking him over at every turn, and he's going to be this and that, and he's just not. And then there's this other guy, I can't even remember his name, but he's one of the officers that the dude that they go off looking for, but he just like turns around and gets killed, and you don't expect it at all. And you're like, oh, okay, that guy's dead. Interesting. You know, and this movie does that. And it has another one, which is my favorite death of the entire film, and one of my favorite deaths I've seen in a while, not because of how like it looks. The Cannibal Holocaust bamboo thing is the best kill in this movie, for sure. But there's another one. I guess I might as well just say it now. The one actor that I've seen in a million things, he goes to sacrifice himself. This is the best shit ever. So there's, you know, one of the skull crawlers. I think it's the big skull crawler. He's like coming at him, and the guy's like, he's like, just go, man. Just go. You guys need to survive. Like, I'm going to stay behind and sacrifice myself. And he fucking, like, puts his arms up. He has the grenades, and he has all the grenades around him, and he's trying to get eaten so that it'll blow him up. And so he does it. And, like, fucking thing just turns around and tail whips him right up into the freaking wall, like 1,000 feet away, and then he explodes, and he sacrifices himself for nothing. This is so fucking funny, and this is so fantastic. We need more moments like this in these kinds of movies. Just a total moment of like, oh my god, that really just happened? This guy totally sacrifices himself for no reason at all. And it's done heroically, and it's done kind of like, oh, that's a shame, but it's also hilarious. It's also hilarious. It's fucked up, but it's also hilarious. Perfect. Perfect. That's my favorite death, and my favorite kill is the Cannibal Holocaust kill. So the look of the kill is that one, but my favorite death is the suicide, the pointless suicide. And then and then when they get in the fight with the first skull crawlers, they're fighting on top of the bones of Kong's family that all got killed, and Kong's the only one left standing. So I thought that was really cool. They were like, there was a bunch of, you know, apes, corpses laying around, and then those big deer looking things. I don't know. Those are like not bison. What are those things called? I know that word. Oh, I know word. I know that animal. What is that animal? It not an elk. Someone let me know. But they huge horns, and they come out and they're enormous, beautiful. Takes just a moment to just look at the beauty of nature and all that. But then you see the ugly side of nature as well. And Kong is the balance. And then I mean, Sam Jackson becomes kind of obsessed with killing Kong, and he kind of goes in there, the hero, and becomes the villain, thinking Kong is the villain when Kong is not the villain. He's the hero. He's their god. He's the guy who saves them from the real terrors that lurk in the darkness and in the hollow earth. They have like the whole center of the island is like hollowed out, and these things live down there, and there's a big one that won't come up because Kong's there. And then of course enough, like Kong gets injured enough to where it comes out to try to prey on him. So anyway, so they try to take him down with some napalm, and Sam Jackson gets his ass crushed after getting all of his men but 3 of them killed. And I like how he just looks at him, and he tries to give the fuck line. I think it's a fuck line, but he like goes to blow him up, and he just smashes him right before he can do it. I feel like smashing him would have set it off, but whatever. It doesn't. He crushed it. That's fine. And that's kind of unexpected as well. It might be a little lackluster for some people, but I was fine with it. And then Kong gets into the big fight with the big monster, and this fight's really rad. This is a super fun fight. Kind of reminds me of the Jackson Kong versus multiple T-Rexes. That was super fun. This is super fun. Kong grabs this chain that's attached to a huge propeller. He kind of gets caught up on it and then finally breaks free, grabs this propeller and starts whipping it around. So he's got like a propeller whip, and he starts smacking this thing with it, which is really cool. And then he goes to save Brie Larson, who falls in the water because not even big apes can resist a beautiful woman. So he goes and he grabs her out of the water, and he's protecting her inside of his hand. And this fucking creature's coming at him, and then he has to like punch, and the creature starts eating his arm with her inside. And then he grabs, I don't know how he's able to continue to keep holding her and get a hold of this thing's insides, but he like finally fights his way out and rips all of his insides out as he pulls his arm out, and then lays her out, and then they wake her up, and they get free, and they ride off into the sunset, and John C. Reilly gets to go home and have that American dream of coming home to the old adult son, his wife, who seems to maybe have been waiting for him, and he does what he wanted to do more than anything besides meeting his son and seeing what was up to his wife, watch a Cubs game while eating a hot dog and drinking a beer. So he gets the American dream ending, and you want to see it. If his character would have died, that would have been a super bummer. I think that would have been a huge mistake. This is a great ending for this character, and he's the strongest character in the film. So, and then Sam Jackson's character, I feel like, is the second strongest because we kind of get to know him. We get to know why he's doing what he's doing. So, I think those are the best rounded characters, and Hiddleston's and Larson's are just completely throwaway, but they do a good job with it anyway. But anyways, there you go. Sorry about the rant about Brie Larson for 7 minutes, but I think she's lovely, and I don't see the issue, and I don't feel emasculated around her work. I don't like go out and go, wow, I feel like I'm toxically masculine, or I should, give away my penis or my balls or something, some such nonsense. Anyways, all right, guys, adios.